First Peter chapter 4 and verse 7. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be serious and discipline yourself for the sake of your prayers. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles who grew well at great millstone, and salutation and blessing to the sincere and pushing his word in the four corners of the globe in sincerity and in all truth. Right? And shalom to the sisters who listen, sincerity. Right, and I want to do a quick video through the Spirit of the Lord. You know, in the times that we living in the end times. And as the scripture say here in the book of First Peter in the NRSV version, it says the end of all things is near. Therefore be serious and disciplined. And in these times we have to be serious, right? Because our salvation depends on it. Right? Our salvation depends on it. As the scripture tell in the book, as the scripture tell in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and 11, I believe it says, when I was a man, I speak as a man. I thought as a man. When I was a child, I thought as a child. Speak as a child. When I became a man, I put away the childish things. And we no longer children. We are men with children. We are men with families. And we have to look after our family. Their life is in our hands because we have the truth. So according to our move that we make, it determines their future. I want to see it in them. Yeah. So this is I want to read an article here. Right. And this is to the brethren who watch these videos, this site here is a beautiful site, on Telegram, and name it is Southfront Analysis. And this actually shows you the takeover, or Russia taking over Ukraine bit by bit. Russia, Ukraine, in the Middle East there with Iran, and these places, Hezbollah, all these places. And showing you how the war progressing. So it says Europe playing with fire by calling for deep strikes. It says Europe parliamentarians have made a very dangerous decision by voting to authorize long-range strike against Russia's deep territory, calling the Ukrainian aggression a right to self-defense. Europe politicians have taken a significant step towards an escalation of violence that could easily lead to an open phase in the current conflict between Russia and NATO. A resolution voted in Europe Parliament on September the 19th approved a recommendation to authorize deep strike against Russia. Now, I'll play a video where Putin speaks of anytime the West use any of their missiles on them, that would then trickle off a different reaction to the Prime Minister of Russia, Vladimir Putin. right? So it says the resolution sets out a series of escalatory measures, including increased military spending, imposition of more sanctions, and confiscation of Russian assets. However, the central point of the document is the formal request to the countries supplying long-range weapons to authorize the use of such equipment against Russian military target outside the conflict border zone. It goes on, it says the text of the resolution states that restrictions on the use of Western weapons by Ukraine undermines the right to self-defense and should therefore be abolished. Currently, the biggest restriction is on the use of long-range weapons against deep targets, since cross-border strikes are already officially authorized. Fearing an escalation, suppliers of long-range missiles are asking for their weapons to be used on target areas too far from the conflict zone, but MEPs are calling for this rule to be lifted. You understand? It says the European Parliament calls on the member states to immediately lift restrictions on the use of Western weapons on Western weapons system delivered to Ukraine against legitimate military targets on the Russian territory, as this hinders Ukraine's ability to fully exercise its rights to self-defense under international public laws and leaves Ukraine exposed to attack on its population and infrastructure. Resolution reads. So in other words, Ukraine at a standstill, right? And in order for them to defend themselves, they will need to use these foreign objects, for lack of better words, right? Option of the pro-war resolution reflected the concerns of hundreds of MEPs about the possible deterioration of military support for Ukraine. Several recent reports indicate that Europe is close to significantly reducing military assistance given the deterioration of the local defense industry. For this reason, the pro-war lobby in the EU is doing its best to maintain the current level of support or expand it by passing new legal documents in the European Parliament. It says the European parliamentarians have highlighted the reduction of supply of weapons and ammunition as one of its main threats to Ukraine. In this regard, the resolution recalls international agreements signed between Western countries and Kyiv to emphasize the alleged importance of maintaining military assistance at high level as well as constantly expanding it. I quote, it says the resolution underlines that this thing didn't pause. Underlines that insignificant deliveries of ammunition and weapons and restrictions on their use risk underlining efforts made so far and deeply deploys the declining financial volume of bilateral military aid to Ukraine from member states, despite the strong statement made at the beginning of this year's reiterates therefore its call on the member states to fully to fulfill their commitment on March 2023 to deliver 1 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine to accelerate weapons deliveries, in particular of modern air defense system and other weapons and ammunition in response to clearly identify needs, and including Taurus missile, calls on the swift implementation of the commitment made in joint security commitment between the EU and Ukraine, reiterates its position, and all EU member states and NATO allies should collectively listen and individually commit to supporting Ukraine military with one less than 0.25% of their GDP annual tax aid adds, right? So the EU member states and the NATO allies should collectively and individually commit a support of Ukraine military, right? So not only the UK, but the EU, right? And Vladimir Putin have something different to say about their assistance in supplying Ukraine with a certain type of weaponry to fight against them, This gives us the GDP, gross domestic products, right? So going on, it says, as expected, the European measures was celebrated by the mainstream media, right? Praising how the European parliamentarian had called for attack on the head of Russia. The possible consequences of the measure were completely ignored, with the focus of Western journalists being simply to honor the irresponsibility of the resolution. In Russia, on the other hand, the news was received with warnings, and this is it here. Moscow has repeatedly said that deep strike would be seen as a declaration of war by NATO. You understand? Since it is known that the only Western military personnel are qualified to operate long-range system, Russia politician commented on the European resolution, saying clearly that the EU is calling for nuclear war. Right? The EU is calling for nuclear war. And all this is being stirred up by the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahshai, because now is the time. Now is the time. So let's finish off this. It says, it must be emphasized that the Parliament resolution do not create obligation for member states, but serve only as a kind of guideline. In the end, it is up to each European state to declare whether or not to lift the restriction. However, even the high level of anti-Russian bellicosity, it would not be surprising if this type of irresponsible measures were adopted. It remains to be seen whether the country that actually supports long-range weapon will take this decision. Russian patience and the desire to avoid escalation and cooperate for peace have so far prevented appropriate retaliation measures from being taken. However, in the event of deep strikes, it will be difficult to avoid a response, since this would be a scenario of open war started by NATO itself. So can we see what's going on by, it no longer a delay in anything. We seeing how fast Monday reaching, we see how fast the day finishing, we see how fast night coming. All that is signs at the time, not only the signs in the heavens when you're seeing the moon, again a blood moon or an eclipse, but one of the signs is this the time speeding up for the Lord's elect's sake. So this is clear to show that the Lord really see the elect. You know, it's just in the last Trump day. You know what? So hey, pray that the Most High keep winning these times. But the men who here right now, that we hold fast, we reach too far to turn back. It says Washington seems to clearly understand Washington clearly seems to understand Russia's red line, but the European act without any strategic mentality. Perhaps the US is inducing the European countries to allow these attacks in order to test Russia's patience, using France and Germany as guinea pigs to see whether or not there be a nuclear response. It is important that the European countries understand the trap they are creating for themselves. Otherwise, they may cross the point of no return, the military escalation. You know, Akim, so this is it, boy. This is it. The time of our Redeemer has come. You know? The time of our Redeemer has come. Scripture is knowing the time is now, it's high time. The next scripture come to my head before I'll bring that. Acts, Romans 13:11 says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. Knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than we believe. Our salvation is nearer than we believe. Right? We know about the tensions. Right? The scripture spoke about in the book of it says, and the word of the Lord, Ezekiel 38, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against it. You know, and we know the scripture speaking about Russia today, right? The scripture speak about the future prophecy. All right. It says, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. I will bring thee forth and will turn armies, horses, and horsemen, all of them clothed in all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers, shields, all of them handling swords. So I know they're speaking about war. What's going on over there right now, like war. But the Russian president said this could be an all-out world war if they continue pushing, because they're pushing for this in the parliament, pushing for their weapons to be used in the Russian and Ukraine war, long range capability. You know? So the Lord said, we're occupying prophecy. And that what we're doing, that what we ought to do. And keep a clear mind and a diligent spirit. You know? So hopefully this video is edifying and give all praises and glory to Yahweh. Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakodash, double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who taught us this truth. You know, double honors to these men. You know, and Kalalali Bahashem Yahushai.
Yashimoria, Macau, Rai, Yashimor, Natasha, Yahweh, Yashimor, Malakya.